The remarkable fossil discovery of two dinosaurs locked in combat has... The smaller predator, previously believed to be a juvenile tyrannosaur, be its own distinct species, known as the Nanotyrannus.
For 80 years, scientists looked at the skull and saw a teenager, a young T-Rex. Still growing, not yet a king. They were wrong. In late 2025, two studies landed within weeks of each other from completely independent teams and reached the same conclusion. This wasn't a child. This was a fully grown predator, a different species entirely, and it had been hiding in plain sight inside museum collections around the world. Its name? Nanotyrannus, the dwarf tyrant, and it was built for something T-Rex could never do. In 1942, researchers in Montana pulled a small skull from the Hell Creek Formation, one of the richest dinosaur graveyards on Earth. It looked like a tyrannosaur, sharp teeth, powerful jaws, but it was small, only about 60 centimeters long. At first, they called it Gorgosaurus. Then in 1988, a team renamed it Nanotyrannus, arguing it was a new species entirely. But the pushback was immediate. Most paleontologists looked at the skull and saw something simpler: a juvenile T-Rex that hadn't finished growing. And for decades, that became the consensus. Case closed. Or so everyone thought. The problem? The skull was alone. No limbs, no growth data, no way to prove how old this animal actually was. Until now. In 2006, fossil hunters in Montana discovered something almost impossible. Two dinosaurs locked in combat, preserved together for 67 million years. A triceratops and a small tyrannosaur, teeth still embedded in bone. For years, this fossil sat in legal limbo. But in 2020, it finally reached the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. And when researchers examined it, they found something that should have been impossible. The bones showed growth rings, like tree rings, that paleontologists use to determine age. And those rings told a devastating story for the juvenile T. Rex theory. This animal was mature. Its growth had slowed. It was done getting bigger. But it was still only about 5 meters long, roughly 18 feet. Less than half the length of an adult T-Rex. If it was a T-Rex, it should have kept growing for years. Instead, its skeleton said, "This is as big as I get." And it wasn't just size. The more the team looked, the more differences they found. Differences that don't change as an animal grows. More teeth than T-Rex. Smaller, blade-like. Built for slicing, not crushing. Longer arms. In fact, this 5-meter animal had arms that were actually longer than those of a 12-meter T-Rex. Think about that. A dinosaur less than half the size, with bigger arms and claws. That's not how growth works. Bones don't shrink. Different sinus cavities, different nerve patterns in the skull, even evidence of a vestigial third finger, something T-Rex completely lacked, and a shorter tail. Fewer vertebrae than any known T-Rex at any age. One researcher put it bluntly: for Nanotyrannus to be a juvenile T-Rex, it would need to defy everything we know about vertebrate growth. But there was still one problem. The original skull, the one from 1942 that defined the entire species, had no limb bones attached. So a second team tried something no one had done before. They went for the throat. Deep in the skull was a small bone called the hyoid, part of the tongue and throat structure. The team sectioned it, looked at its microscopic structure, and compared it to hyoids from birds, crocodiles, and other dinosaurs. What they found matched the Dueling Dinosaurs results exactly. This animal was 15 to 18 years old, not a juvenile, nearly fully mature, and still only a fraction of T-Rex's size. Two studies, different teams, different fossils, different methods, same conclusion. Nanotyrannus was real. So what does this mean for the world T-Rex lived in? It means the late Cretaceous was more dangerous than we imagined. T-Rex was built for power, massive skull, bone-crushing teeth, stocky legs. It could take down a triceratops through sheer force. Nanotyrannus was built for something else entirely. Studies estimate it could run nearly 50 kilometers per hour, almost twice the speed of an adult T-Rex. Long legs, light frame, built to chase down prey that T-Rex couldn't catch. If T-Rex was the lion of its ecosystem, Nanotyrannus was the cheetah. Same territory, different hunting strategies, and likely competing for the same food. Which raises a disturbing possibility. Young T-Rex didn't just have to worry about predators. They had to compete with fully grown Nanotyrannus, adults that were faster, more agile, and armed with longer claws. Here's why this matters beyond settling a scientific argument. For decades, paleontologists used small tyrannosaur fossils to model how T-Rex grew up, how fast it matured, how it hunted at different ages, how its role in the ecosystem changed over time. If those fossils weren't young T-Rex at all, if they were adult Nanotyrannus, then decades of research was built on the wrong animal. Growth curves, feeding behavior, ecological models, all of it needs a second look. As one researcher said, there are literally decades of research and probably hundreds of publications based on a premise that this article overturns. Now, science is never fully settled. Some paleontologists still have questions. Not every small tyrannosaur fossil may belong to Nanotyrannus. And the exact position of Nanotyrannus on the family tree, how closely it's related to T-Rex, is still being debated. Some researchers even suggest Nanotyrannus might not belong to the Tyrannosauridae family at all, that it could represent a completely separate lineage of predatory dinosaurs. But one thing is no longer in question. Nanotyrannus was not a phase. It was not a teenager. It was a fully grown predator, with its own body plan, its own hunting strategy, and its own place in the final chapter of dinosaur history. For 165 million years, dinosaurs dominated this planet. And in those final million years before the asteroid hit, two tyrants shared the same forests, the same floodplains, the same world. One was a king built for raw power. The other was a ghost built for speed. We spent 80 years calling it a child. It was anything but. If you want to know what a real juvenile T-Rex actually looked like, and why it's completely different from what we thought, subscribe to Beast Lab